Welcome to the Mother May I podcast. I'm your host. My name is Whitney Johnson. My co-host Dion Porche in the building. My hubby in the back playing 2K, but it's whatever. We're going to do our thing. And today I want to talk to y'all because I know that stress can make you a bald-headed hoe. And I don't want y'all to be bald-headed hoes. So we're going to talk about ways that you can eliminate stress out of your life, because I feel like this is a conversation that we don't tend to have, right? This is real motherhood, okay? Welcome back. So today we're talking about stress, and I think it's very important that we have conversations about stress because we're going through a whole pandemic and people out here stressed the fuck out, and I don't want y'all out here being bald-headed. So today we're talking about stress. Like, we know that stress is all around. We know that stress can make you sick. We know all these things about stress. But I think the one conversation that we're not having is how to overcome the stresses that happen in your life. Because let's be real, like, everybody goes through stressful shit. And I think a lot of time what people do is they stay stuck, right? When so much shit is like pounding on them and the weight of the world is laying on their shoulders, they literally just stay there because they don't know how to move forward. And I don't want y'all to be doing that because stress can make you a bald-headed hoe. So I'm going to share with you some of the things. I'm going to share with you some of the Shut up. I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've done that help me to overcome the stresses and things that happen in my life. So the first thing that I do is I ask myself the difficult questions. And I think that a lot of times people don't want to face the shit that happens to them because it's easy to overlook them or kind of tiptoe around them or avoid them altogether. But really, you have to face these things head on. And I find that the hardest part for me is owning my shit. So I always start with that part. One thing that I do to do that is, instead of me jumping straight into handling situations, I take a step back and I give myself time to process everything. And I think that when you so quick to react, when you so quick to say, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, or I'm gonna just approach this person, or I'm gonna just talk to this person, or I'm gonna just this and I'm gonna just that, you don't give yourself enough time to actually think through and plan through what is it that you really want. Because you're addressing the situation, but what is the outcome that you really want from that situation? If you're not thinking about the outcome that you want, how will you know when the situation is solved? You won't know because you don't even know what goal you actually want to achieve based off that situation. So always ask yourself the tough questions about what is the goal? What is it that you want to achieve, and why do you want to achieve it so bad? And then once you figure that out, what steps, what processes, what support do you need to put in place to make sure these things happen? And we talk more about that in my mother method because I feel like that is the key to unlocking or figuring out how to deal with the challenges that we face in motherhood, because we face a lot of challenges in motherhoods, and we've been talking a lot about relationships and stuff like that in previous episodes. So if you didn't see those, y'all go back to the previous episodes and you'll hear more about how to do that through relationships. But there's other things that we go through as moms, and one of those things is stress. We go through a lot of shit, we go through a lot of stress, and this same process applies to those situations also. So that's one of the things that I do. I ask myself the hard questions first. I get that shit out the way because I know that once I have a plan of action, the next step that I need to take is get my mind prepared to take my next step. So when it comes to my own personal routine for dealing with like stress and like stuff that happens with me, like a lot of times the stuff that I do may not, let me just say this before we get into this. The stuff that I do may not work for you, but this is what I do and this is what has helped me. And so do this at your own leisure, however you feel, but this is what works for me, and this is what has helped me through some of the shit that I deal with through motherhood. And one of the things that I do is I do yoga. I do yoga because it helps me feel good, okay? It stretches my body out, and as women, we hold a lot of stress and tension in our hips and thigh area. And so it's good to stretch and release that stuff, because if you don't, you'll hold on and lock in so much negative energy within your body. And what will happen is that stuff will travel up to your brain and will affect your decision making. So you have to be mindful of moving your body and making your body feel good on a regular basis, because this is how you're going to avoid allowing stress to make you a bald-headed hoe. You don't want to do that. You have to have a routine in place that's prepared, so that when this stuff happens, you know what to do. So yoga is always my go-to. I love yoga, okay? That's my thing. And plus, I don't like all that sweating and shit. Like, no. So yoga is my thing. That's what I like to do. In addition to that, I pay attention to scents. Scents make me feel good. I love incense. I love body wash. I love sprays. I love things that smell really, really good. So I use those things to help me deal with my stress. If I know that I'm dealing with a stressful situation, before I go to bed, I'll light an incense and I'll let it fill my room up, because it helps me sleep better at night. But you have to tap into what works for you. You have to tap into yourself and figure out what works for you. For me, scents are a match made in heaven. So I use a lot of scents and I do yoga. The third thing that I like to do is I love water. I love water. I think it may be the Aquarius in me, but I love to hear water pouring. I love to touch water. I love showers. I love things like that. And so if I'm feeling stressed, I get a shower, I get some water, I drink water, I turn on YouTube videos of people pouring water. Sound crazy, right? But that shit works. You have to tap into yourself and you have to start figuring out what works for you. What things make you feel good, right? And it took me a while to even get to this point, because it took me peeling back the onion, peeling back the layers of the onion and figuring out who I was as a person, so that I can recognize what I needed to help me overcome stress and all the bullshit that was happening in my life. But you have to become more aware of yourself and what you like. It took me a while to realize, okay, put some good scents, turn on some water. Like, I had to get in tune with myself. So again, like I told y'all, you have to do what works for you. But for me, baby, that shit works. Okay? And the last thing that I'm going to share with y'all that works, well, this ain't even the last thing. I got two more things, actually. The other thing that I'm going to tell y'all that works real, real good for me is praying to God. I promise you, praying to God. You know what I'm saying? Making my time with God a priority for me. Making sure that I always make time for God. I'm never too busy, or I never get, too sidetracked or have too much on my plate that I don't have time for God. I don't do that. I used to be in a place where I used to be so busy doing, going. And I realized through all that going, I wasn't accomplishing anything. Like, I wasn't getting anything done, right? But I was definitely stressing. I was definitely dealing with bullshit, but I wasn't tapping into something bigger. I wasn't tapping into God, who can actually change the narrative and shift the whole situation just like that. And so it's important to build and have that relationship with God on a regular basis, so when shit does happen, you have something to lean back on and you can still move forward in faith, knowing that this situation is tough, but I know who got me. I know who got me. And so that's important. You have to have these into your routines on a regular basis, because stress is going to happen. Stuff is going to happen. But what do you have in place to support you? That's what you need. You need to make sure that you're building and strengthening that relationship with God, because that's what's going to push you forward in those difficult times also. All right, y'all. The last thing I'm going to say, listen, all the good saints, y'all might want to log off my podcast, because the first few were very nice and gentle. Now it's about to get a little ratchet, so just saying. All right, so the last thing that I do to help me manage my stress and deal with difficulties that happen in my life is I roll a blunt. And I think that when people hear you say things like you roll a blunt, they think you walk around here like that. No, sis. You have to figure out what works for you. And I think that a lot of times people have this misconception about weed and cannabis and all that. They have this misconception about it because you see all these people walking around here looking all goofy and shit. But you have to realize that this is a plant. It was put on this earth for us to utilize, right? And so it's about you making responsible decisions with the plant in general. You know what I'm saying? Like, not smoking weed to mask or cover up your shit. You still have to face your shit. And I think that one of the things that a lot of cannabis users or weed users or whatever you want to call them, what they tend to do is they use this as a coping thing instead of a thing to support them through moving through the challenges. And so from my own situation, I like to figure out what I need to do to move forward in my shit, and then I use my cannabis to help me relax and ease and unwind into those decisions so that I can make them without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling stressed about them. I'm confident in what I'm doing, I'm relaxed about it, and I'm ready to take action. But you have to figure out what works for you. For some people, weed is not their thing, and I don't ever put that on nobody. But if it is for me, and I think that we need to build a community where people are supported by whatever they feel they need to do, so that they aren't stressing, aren't dealing with anxiety, aren't dealing with depression, and all these things that can actually kill you and really, really hurt you. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to always build a community where there is no judgment about whatever you choose to do. It can be whatever it is. You do what you need to do to avoid these things so that you can be the mother that your kids need you to be, the wife your hubby needs you to be, and all the other things, right? Like, you have to do what works for you. And so today's episode was just about that. You know what I'm saying? I don't want y'all out here stressing and being bald-headed hoes. Like, y'all ain't got to do that. So what I want you to take from this episode is create a routine that works for you. Start really getting in tune with what you need for you. What do you need to hear? What do you need to see, smell, taste, whatever? Whatever that is, do that. Do it for you, and don't worry about what people got to say. All right? So that was today's episode. I hope y'all enjoyed it. It was quick, it was sweet, and it was to the point. I'll see y'all next week on another episode of the Mother May I podcast. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe, like, and share this video. Also, make sure y'all meet us in the Motherhood Circle, because we also talk about these topics, and we also share parenting tips there and all these other things. It's just a community that I've created for women who are on the same vibe as us, who are great moms, but you know, we have a little edge to us, and we just want to be understood out here in these streets. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're great moms, but we know there's more to our lives besides motherhood. And so I created a space for that, where you are judge-free, where you are supported and you feel heard, and all the other things that I feel like I've needed throughout my experience as an entrepreneur, as a mom, as a wife, all the things, right? So anyway, y'all can meet us at the Motherhood Circle. Meet us at the Motherhood Circle on Facebook, and I'll see y'all next week for another episode of the Mother May I podcast.